Hey y'all, it's your boy Richard Fowler, and we're back on Talking Together for another edition, another moment for you and I and my guest to bond. Yes, indeed, America, it is true. Listen, I'm joined by such a good friend today on Talking Together. Joining me is Courtney Madden. She's the executive director for the New Leaders Council, and she's also a candidate running for office in Massachusetts. Now, being a candidate is a lot different these days because you can't knock on doors, you can't do in-person meet and greets, you can't sort of hang out at the farmer's market. So things have changed. And so basically we're trying to find out what's happening in Courtney's life as a candidate now that we're sort of quarantined and we're sort of relegated to these Zoom calls and Google Hangouts and conference calls. So I'm not the one to talk about this. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me, my good friend Courtney Madden. Courtney, welcome to Talking Together.
Thank you so much for having me, Richard. It's certainly a fun topic, and it's certainly my daily life. Um,
Listen, I'm surprised you said it was fun. I mean, I would say it's a challenge. Like, this is an interesting topic, and let me tell you, it's challenging. It's been challenging for me as a candidate. But before we get into that, what are you running for?
sure. So I'm running for Norfolk County Register of Probate here in Massachusetts. There are 14 counties in Massachusetts, and each one of them has a Register of Probate. It's actually one of our few elected judicial positions. Think of it as like a clerk of the court, but they oversee the operations and the partnerships and the administration of our family and probate court in the county that they represent.
So, in just for folks who aren't from Massachusetts, so what does that mean? So, if you are the Register of Probates in what county are you from, Courtney?
Norfolk County.
Norfolk County, and you show up at work at 9 o'clock. What are you doing?
Well, we show up at 8:30, but that's
Hey,
okay.
I show up to work at 10, so there's that.
Court session started at 8:30. So actually, you work you're essentially the clerk of the court. So a lot of people are pro se litigants. That means that they're not represented by an attorney or counsel. And it's if you're coming into the family and probate court, it's usually from some personal legal affairs. So
So
think about
divorce, child
divorces,
custody.
child custody agreements. Um, Unexpected deaths, probating the estate of a loved one who passed without a will, guardianships for some of our older members. So those type of family intervention or family changes, things that really impact and change your life. I mean, it's who's sitting around your kitchen table, who's not, and why. And so they're very, very personal moments. I often tell people if you're coming into the family and probate court, it's probably not at the greatest moment in your life, except for adoptions, right? That is the happiest day in any courthouse, is when families become whole through adoption. But for the rest of it, it's pretty serious and pretty personal and emotional legal affairs. And so this office could just be shuffling paper, but it's not. A lot of the Register of Probates around the state actually have built out partnerships that fill in the gaps that it's no one's job. So, DCF might have a role, Department of Revenue might have a role, the court system has a role, but then there's a bunch of things that are just about the success of what happens after court sessions. That's nobody's job per se. And the Register of Probates really pick that up. So there is a domestic violence clinic that meets. There's a lawyer of the day program to make sure that pro se litigants are adequately counseled. There are a number of programs for grandparents who are doing their second tour of parents.
I love that second tour of parenting. I love that.
Yes,
I'm stealing that phrase.
yes. So it's certainly, there's it's investing in the success of families that are entering the courthouse. And so it's a really, really unique role to advocate for what families need, both and provide it. And that's what I really like. It's a long-term position where you have an opportunity to really upgrade and serve families. It's not super political. You're not going to find me on the cover of the Boston Globe, but you might hear somebody in their home say, I really needed that office in that moment. And that to me is incredibly important.
I love it, and I think I've known Courtney for years, so the audience knows, and I think that's the perfect role for Courtney, somebody who really cares about people. First of all, congratulations on deciding to run for office. It's a big commitment, but it actually has true and real and meaning impact, especially for the people of Norfolk County. So now, Courtney, gets you to the big part. So you announced in February, and you were doing meet and greets, you were knocking on doors, you were at farmer. You were at farmers markets, you know, handing out lit. Then March sort of 15th hit, and they were like, stay home, don't leave your homes. This is a lockdown. Coronavirus is here. Or as Cardi B would say, coronavirus, it's real, stay home. That happens. Your life as a candidate is completely turned upside down.
Yes, that is a fair that's a fair statement. So announced actually in late February, was going to kind of caucuses around the county and getting an opportunity to meet some of our active Democrats, and was really starting to hit some momentum. We had our kickoff event and fundraiser on March 13th. And stay-at-home orders went into effect on March 15th. So it has been a whirlwind. Most of my campaign now has been through Zoom, and so it's been really interesting to throw out retail politics. Everything you've learned, everything I've trained on, all of the advice that I've given candidates before I've jumped into the ring myself is out the window. And I know I said that it's fun because you have to look at it as like, I get to run for office. In this moment where leadership is so needed, I get to run for office. My name is on a ballot. And so I try to keep that perspective. Yeah, so I try to keep that perspective, is that I have an opportunity here to influence how things are going to move forward, and to comfort my community and to help them when we start to clean up a little bit from this chaos. And so just kind of pivoting and a lot of Zoom, but being respectful. Folks are a little fatigued by Zoom, so trying to do it in different ways. So we have Saturday morning coffee with Court. I come with a sweatshirt on, my hair is up in a bun, and I try to just talk to people on a very real level. I do miss being able to go out and shake hands and kiss babies and talk to folks, because that's where I feel like I really shine, is when I have a moment to sit down and have that personal conversation. But we're finding different ways to do it.
Let's unpack that for a little bit, right? So you announced in late February, right? We put the stay-at-home order goes in place in March, and then your campaign has to immediately adjust to its new digital landscape, right? What were some of the strategies, or what were some of the things that you guys thought about right away, and how did you implement some of those strategies? Like, what were some of the big things? Like, okay, so we know we have to talk to these voters, so we're going to use Zoom, we're going to use phone calls, but talk me through the thought pattern, right? Because I think that's what I think is really important here, is life has changed and everybody's doing their job a little bit differently. But being a candidate, which is a job where it literally is retail, like you have to smile and shake hands and, like you said, kiss babies. So how do you create that virtual kiss, that virtual sort of retail space for the voter?
So, I mean, you still follow a lot of the same premises. So as a first-time candidate or as a new candidate, you don't want to try to drag people to you, especially if you don't have name recognition. So you're not trying to host a lot of events that you are the sole sponsor of. Instead, you're trying to go to where people are. So we've really focused on that. So where are people meeting and gathering on Zoom, and how do we become part of that programming? How do we become part of that network? And so that was kind of step one, is like, where are people in the digital space?
And where did you find that people were in Norfolk County?
So, Facebook Live is really effective in terms of, we're seeing that our posts with Facebook Live are great, but again, that's dragging people a little bit to you. People are still meeting for virtual happy hours, for virtual coffees, play dates. Planning meetings are still happening for civic associations, and for we have a Democratic City and Town network. They're still meeting, they're still planning, and having those convenings. And so really reaching out proactively and saying, hey, can I join you for 15 minutes? Can I talk for 10 minutes? And sometimes they say, no, we can't give you the mic for the whole time, but we're doing breakout groups. And so, yeah, I might meet 10 to 15 people, but I'm there and I'm present. And so that's the way to be present right now, is, is just going in and connecting with people on that level. And also respecting a little bit that there is this Zoom fatigue. So we've switched our now that the weather's nicer, we're thinking about some other ways that we can just reach out to voters. And so you're not
What are you
pulling.
guys thinking of? What are you guys thinking about? What are some other? Are you guys thinking about doing like distance picnics in the park? I'm just curious because this is 2020. This is the election cycle that everybody's sort of been waiting for. And there's so many candidates up and down the ballot. And with, news we heard last week that the former vice president, current Democratic nominee, says he will not campaign at this point, will not likely campaign in person at all for the foreseeable future. What does this look? I use it as a premise to say, what does this look like, right? So what does new strategies, outside of Zoom, which is what we're used to,
Mhm.
which is where we're taping this interview, by the way. But what are you guys thinking about?
So our seniors are really lonely right now, and especially in our assisted living facilities, and they're scared. And a lot of our frontline workers are still reporting to work there. And so as we think about traditional standouts, and I know that 1,000 consultants are going to say signs don't vote. But this is 2020, and we're in a different framework right now. And seniors vote. They vote a lot, and they're going to vote by mail, and they are staying engaged. And they might not hop on a Zoom, but you want them to know that you're there for them. And so we're looking into some ways at which we can play some music outside and do standouts, not facing the street, but actually facing some of our senior facilities, engaging them, inviting them to open their window and listen to some golden oldies with us, if they will, and just letting them know that they're not alone. Spend some time with them, leaving behind some lit. And so it's just a different type of retail politics. It's letting people know that even though I can't stand next to you, even though I can't shake your hand, I'm thinking of you. And I'm hoping that you are doing well and staying in good spirits. And I'm going to do something to make sure that you are staying in good spirits. And that's a big part of it.
I love that. See, I haven't even thought about that. Like, so playing music, like in the parking lot of assisted living facilities and saying, just open up your window and join the virtual rally. That's a
Mhm.
really good idea. And what other ideas are you guys what other strategies you guys implementing?
So we're starting to look at some standout pieces, but we are considering how do we do some distance picnics. Kind of waiting. We know that Boston has canceled July 4th festivities. We think that some of the local festivities are also going to be canceled. Not chapters, communities are really holding to see if they want to cancel their fireworks. I think it's really difficult right now. There's this yearning to reopen and to come back together, and there's certainly a lot of focus on our 2020 class and how do we celebrate our seniors from high school, not our seniors
We
in
should
our.
celebrate all. We should celebrate all our seniors, by the way.
Yes,
But
all
yes,
of
I
our
get
seniors
it.
need a hug right now, but we can't give it to them. So really kind of staying on top of what our towns, cities, and towns are doing and seeing if there's ways that we can celebrate with them in the ways that feel safe for folks. Massachusetts is starting a 4-phase plan of opening up a little bit on May 18th. I do have the benefit of a lot of beachfront locations. And so when you have big open spaces like that, you can actually gather safely at a safe distance, and people are more inclined to do that. So we're rethinking kind of locations, nothing inside, which does kind of hurt my soul as a former member of our service industry, and wanting to make sure that our small businesses and especially our restaurants stay open. But for right now, I just don't think that anybody's going to want to gather in an enclosed space. So rethinking our open spaces and how we can gather there.
So now tell me, what has been some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a digital candidate? Because that's really what you are at this particular time.
Yeah. For me, I really enjoy those one-on-one moments with voters. I think when you have an opportunity to talk to someone about their story, which they might not feel comfortable sharing in a larger Zoom call or with, an audience that they don't know everyone with, I miss the opportunity to talk to folks. When I was going to caucuses, I was chatting with folks, and my speech and the theme of my campaign is home matters, right? I'm running for office because this office is about who's in our homes, and this matters. In some ways, the pandemic has validated my point. Not that I wanted it to, but it did. And some of the things that I talked about accessibility and about technology and our need to embrace that in the court system to take us into the 21st century, some of those things are actually happening, not on a time scale in a way that we would have wanted them to, but very quickly to respond to what's happening with the pandemic. And but the thing I miss is having that conversation, someone telling me their story about their parent passing away and having to handle the estate and not really knowing what they were doing and really needing that guidance from the office, or individuals telling me about their moment of adoption and how much the court system celebrated that, how much the offices celebrated that, and how special that was for them. But kind of having those personal moments are missing, but that doesn't mean that we still can't have them. So we're having them in one-on-one on phone calls. I think the biggest challenge for me has been money. I think that this is a really weird economic moment for everyone. Those who have are worried that they won't have enough. And those who do not have are not sure when they will have again. And that is a very, very scary moment for
you fundraise. I mean, we're used to seeing candidates either have in-person fundraising events, or we're used to candidates, blowing up our inboxes with emails saying give, 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 give. And you're running for an office that's very local, that's very dedicated to the people of Norfolk County, which means it's going to be harder for you to get, the big dollars or the big or the big endorsements from like the Our Revolution or whatever. So how are you managing sort of quarantine fundraising?
so actually going to labor unions and associations.
Wow.
They are still meeting and having these conversations with them and asking them like, okay, so there's a pandemic. What is your plan? What partnerships do you have in place for your membership? Do you have a way for your membership to get their estates in order? Do you have somebody who writes their wills? Do you have a training class on that? These are some of the things that actually the Register of Probate's office have provided, is like basic how-to for your will and getting it filed. And folks who, like ourselves, who are maybe new homeowners, haven't thought about this. I mean, life's just beginning in so many ways. And then all of a sudden this happened, you're like, oh my gosh, I own property. I need to have my affairs in order. And I think this pandemic has put a lot of things in perspective of like, oh, okay. All of those things that I thought could wait, right? Could wait till I was 60, could wait till I was 70 or whatever, are very real in this moment. And people wanting to be prepared for that. First responders, frontline workers, making sure that they have access to those tools. And so talking to the unions about what do you have in place and how can we partner together has been a really effective strategy. And they also understand that right now they hold those keys of how a first-time candidate like myself can get out, can get their name out to their membership.
So
So
typically fundraising dollars have been used to fund campaign offices, organizers, lit, but paid canvassers. And now of that list of things, some of these things aren't necessarily needed, right? You do need organizers. You don't need field organizers. You need digital organizers, right? You do need to have events and meet and greets and picnics, but now those are being done on Zoom. So you're raising money, but where's the money now shifting to, away from the in-person sort of role that we're used to seeing on campaigns where the money usually goes?
So more into literature, into mailings. That is, and it looks like we're going to be voting by mail, which is exciting and safer for our communities. I'm a huge supporter of it. So it's going to be predominantly mail, and I think everyone is kind of excited to get the mail these days. It's somebody different coming to your house. Please don't hug your mailman or mailwoman. But I think people kind of look forward to checking the mail now because it's just something to break up the monotony. And they're more inclined to read it. What we're seeing is that they're more inclined to read the literature that's coming out. So you have an opportunity to kind of, in your own voice and with your own face, get in front of these individual voters. What I found is that you also kind of need it for, if you want to upgrade your technology and your ways in which you're connecting with folks, you need it for that. And you do still need to, and I think this is an important thing to say, is that you should never expect your staff to work for free.
Absolutely.
We value experience. And so And I do not want to contribute to our unemployment rates. And so I'm working hard to make sure that I'm paying my staff.
And how many people are on staff now?
Right now, just one. We had hoped to bring on a second person. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to do that right now. But they've continued on in a volunteer capacity, and we appreciate that.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So what do volunteers do? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming they probably help with mailings. So what do volunteers are used to? We're used to them knocking on doors. We're used to volunteers sort of dropping off yard signs. We're used to volunteers managing events. But in this digital world that we live in, right, in this with these stay-at-home orders, what are you asking your volunteers to do?
So we're actually making it pretty easy. Yes, pick up the phone, call your friends and family who are in the community and tell them why you're voting for me and why you're supporting me. That's really effective. They're going to take your word over mine because you are somebody that they know. So kind of working with folks on their scripts and talking about how they can get through and tracking all of that is really, really important. For those who are part of a little bit of a younger generation, we're using text messages, which is super effective. More people are apt to pick up a text message and read it than they are to pick up and listen to that voicemail. That's why you see so many younger folks with voicemail boxes that are full and you can't leave a message because they're done with it.
I'm guilty. I think I have like 20 messages right now.
And then people who are organically, what I keep telling folks is like, you're already an organizer. Did you just have a virtual happy hour with your friend, your neighborhood? You're already organizing. So kind of thinking about those spaces where you're already organizing and kind of building on them for the campaign has been great. I think this has been a moment where people realize that they can do a lot more than they thought they could. And I keep saying, add it to your resume. You didn't realize that you could do this and you're doing a great job.
And so we talked about some of the drawbacks. Now, what are some of the pluses of being a digital candidate? So we know we had a whole combos about the drawbacks, but tell me, what are some of the pluses?
Transparency with what your opponents are doing, to be totally honest. You can see exactly who's hosting what when, because it's being promoted on digital, and you can really see kind of who's getting momentum and who's not. Which I think is really helpful. I think you run your own race. That is number one. I'm running because I'm the right person for this position. I'm the most qualified person for this position, and I'll really take it to the next level. But it's important to kind of know where you're missing your mark and who you should be, who you're not talking to. And that's super helpful. It's obviously a little bit less expensive to meet digitally than it is to meet in person.
That's true.
So that is certainly helpful. There are, if I had to be very honest and frank, there are definitely more challenges than opportunities. But again, I just kind of keep coming back to this piece of, I get to be on a ballot. I get to run for office right now. I get to tell my community how much I care about it and how much I want to contribute to it. And I get to put myself out there and go after a position that means a lot to a lot of families.
That's great. Listen, I'm glad to see you on the ballot. And I know folks in my audience are happy to see that we have young people running for office because we are the change that we want. We are the change that we seek, as former President Barack Obama said. Courtney Madden, how can folks find out more about your campaign?
So you can visit us at courtneymadden.org, or you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Madden for Probate. So, and you should get involved in any of your local races, including mine, because really our local candidates, it can feel very isolating in a digital space. We know that just in general, that folks feel very isolated in a digital space right now. But don't be afraid to share that post from the local candidate that you care about. There's really no other way for your friends and family to know that you're supporting them in this moment, because you can't go to an event. You could probably put a lawn sign out, but sharing posts really does help. But more importantly, sharing a post and stating why you support this individual would be super, super helpful.
I love it. Courtney Madden for Probate of Norfolk County. Thank you so much for being here on Talking Together, and good luck on your race, and good luck being a digital candidate. We'll see you in another episode of Talking Together.
Thanks, Richard.